Hey, everybody. Welcome to Open the Gates. I'm your host, Matt Burke, and tonight we're going to be having on legendary comic book creators Kelley Jones and Matt Wagner. They're going to be talking about their epic Dracula book, Dracula Volume 1, The Impaler. So if you guys give a warm welcome for Matt Wagner and Kelley Jones, that'd be fucking awesome. What's up, Matt? What's up, Kelley?
Man.
How you guys doing?
It's quite the assertive intro you have to your show there.
Oh, yeah, right? A little hammery metal, like...
Yes, like, wow, we're in the right place, I guess.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, absolutely. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
We're doing terrific. We got 3 more days to go here on the campaign, the Kickstarter campaign for Dracula Book 1, The Impaler, which is the first volume of our planned 4 graphic novel series. So there's 3 more to come. This Kickstarter is for Volume 1, though.
Oh man, I can't wait. That sounds awesome. It sounds like something I'm going to be looking forward to every Halloween.
We're hoping so. Yeah.
I did back the book. It looks awesome, man. And I see that you guys got your tumblers right now. You guys got your bourbons, or
yeah. Do you have your Dracula one, Kel?
No, I'm washing it. I've been using it. We've been using it.
I'll show everybody mine.
Yeah.
When Kelley and I first started this project, I bought us these Dracula whiskey tumblers that are really great. And when we first launched the campaign, we both had a toast to each other in our Dracula tumbler. Yep.
I got me a little Kraken right here, little Kraken rum, drinking out of my little Jack Sparrow tin.
There you go.
Yeah, right. I'll get there. Oh, we got someone in the chat right now, fellow metalhead, sarcastic, agnostic. You know Matt's hype for this book. Yeah, you know for sure. Yeah, man.
We are too, man. This has been a real labor of love for us. We've been working on it now for about 1.5 years, and so it has just been fucking killing us to not be able to tell anybody about it up until now. Kelley was just like bursting, and I was like, dude, no, we got to keep it down. We got to keep it cool.
Like physically biting your tongue on.
Yeah, every step of the way. But
it was a long haul.
It was extremely gratifying when we finally unveiled it, and we got such positive response to it almost immediately. Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. And I was wondering, like, how did both you guys first discover Dracula?
I literally can't remember a time I didn't know about Dracula,
Right?
Always been a Kelley too. I know we've both been horror and monster fans ever since we were young, and there just always seemed to be Dracula somewhere around, if even only the Count on Sesame Street,
Right.
The Dracula is a very ubiquitous presence. I constantly point out that in my mind, I think he's the most famous literary character of all time.
Yeah, it's hard to think of any other.
I mean, certainly, some Dickens characters, maybe Gatsby,
Holmes,
but none of them quite resonate to every corner of the world and in every culture like the name Dracula and like the image of the urbane vampire. And so, Kelley and I have been friends for many, many years. We always wanted to do something together and something significant, like a real big project, and the stars just aligned because I knew once we started something, it would be about 4 or 5 years commitment from both of us,
I think he's right. I think this is the character. This is the time we've been wanting to do something. And that he said Dracula, let's do Dracula. It all sounded right. And for it to come out as well as it has I'm not surprised, but I am, because it's like, wow, everything you hope for, it did. It has become, and I couldn't be more proud of this thing. Along with anything else I've done in my career, this is right there too.
Yeah, me too. And I've had a lot of personal creative fulfillment, and
I'm not saying that because we're just doing it now. It has been that thing that I'm like going, good Lord, this has really come out well. Mm-hmm. And he's right. It was like really tough not to, you have those few friends you can trust, you'll show as you go. And, and they would always get back to me, and I would show them a little bit here, a little bit there, never the whole thing. And no, there are other people doing comics, and they would say, you guys are onto something. This is amazing. And
now I want to point out to your viewers there, Matt, that what we're talking about here, we are not doing yet another adaptation of the novel into comic book form. There's a ton of those already, probably more than I can count, really. We're telling all the other stories, because when you read Dracula, when you read the original Bram Stoker novel, Dracula's not on stage very much. He's a very mysterious presence, but there's enough very evocative hints and clues about him and the way he's presented when he is speaking, when his presence is front and center, that I finally figured out there's a way to approach this that's around the edges, that is not straight down the center of the narrative. So we'll tell all the stories behind the story.
It is blood soaked too.
Yes, it's blood soaked. Yes.
There is no other way to put it.
Because that's, we want to, in the book, so many of the cinematic interpretations over the years really stress a romantic aspect to Dracula. That's not in the book.
No,
he's a fucking monster from beginning to end. And yet, we wanted to portray him as a human. Somebody whose motivations you understood, but he's dangerous, and it.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. What were some of your like main inspirations for this one? It's kind of like, well, dude, it's fucking Dracula. But you probably had like some like direct inspirations for this take on Dracula, right?
Well, Kelley and I have talked about this a lot. We're such fans of Dracula that literally pretty much every interpretation soaks in some fashion and adds to the distillation of our special
canon,
our special brew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's bits of, I was saying the other day, I wanted to have the feral quality of Nosferatu,
the rat,
the kind of ferocity of Christopher Lee, kind of like Kelley and I were both young when the Jack Palance TV version was on, for the first time. There's a muscularity to that character that we wanted. And also the charm of something like the Frank Langella version, and then of course,
and for me, I wanted
the elegance of Bela Lugosi.
I wanted to also really delve into the historically, the realist, the guy who was there, Vlad himself, and that Matt called it the Impaler. I really wanted to get not the biter of the necks, not the guy with the cloak. It's the Impaler, and that might be the worst incarnation of him. It's like you can't blame the supernatural on that.
No.
But the real guy, the real dude is, they're still talking about him. I just
centuries later.
Just recently they completed a forensic exam of some papers he had signed to get DNA off his palm print while he was writing the letter, and they feel what they came out of this was he may have had this condition where you cry blood.
Oh wow!
It has a medical name, but they found this in the palm print.
Huh?
Isn't that in the Daniel Craig, the villain in the Daniel Craig Le Chiffre in the Daniel Craig of Casino Royale? Doesn't he weep blood?
Yes, he has that condition. Yeah. It's the weeping of blood, and they think that's very plausible because clearly the impaling, clearly the belief in vampirism at the time, all of that would have, if no one's going to come up to him and say that, but they would know that he had that condition.
We really wanted to make it so that his vampirism isn't what makes him what he is. He's already that. So the vampirism is more just like a big cherry on top. It codifies it basically into something beyond normalcy, beyond humanity, into something supernatural. But he's already that character throughout the first book.
When I seen that too, I was like, oh, the Impaler, and they're doing 4. Matt Wagner and Kelly Jones are doing 4 books. So I'm like, oh. And I saw that you're doing the Impaler first. I was like, well, because Vlad and Dracula, they're like my favorite IP, Like even me and my little brother, we had a death metal band like 15 years ago, and we wrote a Vlad the Impaler song. So I had to do research on him, So And then learning the tiers, I didn't know about that. That's crazy.
That's a new thing.
Yeah, that's new. I was like, wow.
It's a new thing, but it's that there's still this fascination with him after all these years.
Matt, you'll dig this. There's I forget which streaming platform. You can, if you just look around, you can find it on one of the streaming platforms. There's a Turkish film from 2018 or 19. Vlad the Impaler. Yeah, and he's the villain. He's the villain, right? Yeah. And there's a whole team of like Muslim warriors, like a super team, right? And they each have like a different way of fighting and shit, you know. And they kind of assemble as this super team to fight Dr. Doom, fight
like Power Rangers.
Fight Vlad. Yes, exactly like that. Yeah, it's a real hoot, a real different take.
Well, in Turkey, he's still the villain. I mean,
right.
He's still the guy. I mean, you impale 20,000 Turkish soldiers, you will not be forgotten.
Yeah,
forced. Yeah, that's yeah, man, that's crazy.
I know they're looking for where that was because it's described in the dispatches of the Turkish army, this area. So they're looking to see if they can find the holes that were dug, you know, and to see where that is because they know that's the truth. They cut down their guys, a lot of them, and took it back to show the Sultan.
Right.
So they know that it did happen. It isn't just one of those legends. They wrote about it much more than the Wallachians did.
Hey, Kel, here's a fun, gruesome bit. This doesn't have anything to do with Dracula. It's just cool and gruesome.
Yeah.
That I learned the other day. You know, back in the day, regardless of what modern films would have you believe, women weren't really on the battlefield, right?
No, they weren't.
They were like cheerleaders.
But they not only cheerleaders, they were the ones that were sent in to kind of count the dead afterwards.
Yep.
Oh, right? Yep.
See how many of the enemy force had been defeated. Well, of course, they couldn't drag the bodies off. They just weren't physically strong enough to do all that. So they would lop off a hand, and they all had a satchel over their shoulder that they would store these.
Cool.
And that became known as a handbag.
Oh, damn.
Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome. And you know, my wife just had a birthday, and I bought her a handbag. I'm going to have to tell her that.
You need to stick a little rubber hand in
for Halloween, dude.
You're right. That actually, they probably finished off that were still wounded too.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they were. I mean,
if you were wounded, lopping off your hand would bleed you out pretty quick.
Girls were pretty tough back then.
They were. And then his wife, she did, die. One of his wives fell from one of the castles, right?
One of them, yeah. Although that's not absolutely documented. It's kind of accepted as historical fact, although there's not really any documentation. It's kind of a rumor.
Come on. You're married to a guy who impales people. I think there was probably because you heard he survived the battle. I better kill myself.
Yeah. And it almost certainly wasn't out of being heartsick. It was like the enemy soldiers are going to come in and rape me to death.
Oh yeah,
right.
And they would have. That's what I think the reason was they were going to rape her to death. So she wouldn't let
the much more preferable way out. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree. I would have jumped too.
Yeah.
Are we going to see any Radu in the book by any chance?
We hear about him, but we don't see him now. Okay. We need to concentrate on, we certainly took Vlad as the springboard for our character, but then he very quickly has to be the Dracula we're familiar with.
Yeah.
Stoker version. And by that I don't mean the vampire right out of the gate, but he has to be that person that we recognize,
And we want to get to the characterization through all this violence. And so you don't want to slow that down.
Yeah.
Right.
Through all the action, through all his machinations, you want to show him as this incredibly frightening character before we get, and then when it happens, when he becomes the vampire, you'll go, yeah, it's like, that's why he does what he does.
And speaking of that, of becoming the vampire, I felt a real obligation to make sure that his transformation was due to something extraordinary.
Yeah.
As I was going into it, I was like, look, this is not only the most famous literary character of all time, he's by far the most famous vampire of all time.
Oh yeah.
So it has to be something like really special and unique in the way that he becomes a vampire. It can't just be that he got bitten by another vampire. That's just too ordinary and too boring. So we have a really cool and indelible way that he becomes a vampire. Very memorable.
Have you guys ever been to Wallachia? Or Wallachia?
No, No.
Oddly, I'm getting several invites because people are hearing about this, who live there, who are very, very happy that Matt and I are doing this kind of a Dracula.
Yeah.
And they live there. I had one fella, his family does tours there. He says, if you guys come, we'll set it up to where you go.
Awesome.
You go on the Borgo Pass and you go and you'll see. But the thing I wanted to see was what he had said was all these villages that are still there.
Mm-hmm.
That he controlled, that they still talk about him.
The cup, right? The golden cup. Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, look, don't be surprised. There's people who he's very patriotic there. That's a patriotic character.
Yeah.
But there are those people who still believe in the vampire stuff. I mean, strictly do believe it. So he, basically don't make fun. I said, hell, I believe in it. So it's okay.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you guys ever be down to like maybe, I don't know, theoretically maybe like take a field trip there or like go there for a little bit?
It's funny Kelley just mentioned that. My immediate thought was like, well, let's wait till like book 4.
That's what I'm talking about. I knew that.
I feel like we have our PhD. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I would want them to go as conquering heroes. We did this thing that they respect, that they like.
Yeah. Oh hell yeah! Man.
I would love to have Romanian, Transylvanian thumbs up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. That would be awesome. I know that like I would love to see that, even if you guys put it up on like YouTube or something like that, just to see the journey. I was wondering, is there going to be a Frankenstein in this book?
No.
No. Okay.
No. Yeah. Although there are eventually we see some other supernatural elements. There's definitely supernatural elements in the first one. Absolutely.
Yeah. Major League.
Major League. Yeah. But no, it's not going to be Penny Dreadful. We're not mixing up the narratives from those time periods.
It's
because then you kind of dilute him as being the special one.
Yeah, he's the special guy. And Matt's great genius is we see him over different periods as we see what this does to him and how he becomes who he becomes. So the 4 will be separate stories, but they'll all be connected. If you read them, it's great. If you read them individually, it's fine. If you read them out of order, it's fine. But if you read them in the order, they become this massive epic.
Yeah, again, so far as not diluting the thing, I always point out about how, in the DCU, there's all these other characters that have Superman's powers, like his exact same powers. It's like, doesn't that make him ordinary man?
Yeah,
it does. Super ordinary man.
Yeah,
what's so super about that's him? Right. They've kind of Superman doesn't really mean anything anymore because there's so many people who've got it.
Yeah,
that's why it's great to make Dracula the single focus of everyone's terror.
And in keeping with that too, part of our narrative is the fact that in the novel now we see precious few other vampires in the novel, but he is so distinctly more powerful than any of them. And that could just be an attribute of his age, that he's been around longer. But we give it another reason as well. He seems to have more distinct powers than the other vampires, and we explain that away in the first novel.
Yeah,
that's intriguing.
Well, and I think what I really like in this is Matt wrote a character that you're fascinated by, but I don't think anyone would want to be. I don't think anyone would go, yeah, it'd be cool to be a vamp or anything. You would look at this and we're back to what it really is.
Right.
And that's what I missed is there's no romance to this guy. He's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
You are mesmerized by him, and in no way, shape, or form would you want to sit next to him on a bus.
Yeah. I keep using especially in regards to the factor of how little he's on stage in the novel. I keep equating it to Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Steals the show. He's in that movie 16 minutes.
Yep.
He has 16 minutes of screen time, and yet, magnetic, compelling, dangerous as fuck.
Yep.
Yep.
I loved him in the Wolfman remake. He got down. I like the little fight scene.
I enjoyed that.
Little fight scene. That's my favorite werewolf movie, but we're talking Dracula right now.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I'm a Howling man myself.
Yeah, that's my favorite werewolf movie of all time. Howling's number 1. That transformation scene. Oh my gosh.
It's just a tidy story too. It really is a tight little story. Yeah, like it.
And I just hope they don't remake it. Just the whole world that they have. And what do you guys think about the new Dracula movies that have come out? Like in recent times, like Dracula Untold, the Netflix Dracula, Renfield, Last Voyage of the Demeter. What do you guys think about those?
Is that your cats, Kelley?
I think it was one of them.
I have not seen Renfield yet because I've just never been. We got a little cat action going on there. I've never been a big fan of the Dracula comedic stuff. Like I never really saw Dead and loving it.
Yeah,
loving it.
I like Love at First Bite's funny.
Love at First Bite. Yeah, I never really grabbed on any of those, so I haven't seen Renfield. Kelley and I were both talking about Last Voyage of the Demeter. There's some real stuff to like in that. They fumble it very hard at the end because at the end you needed to see him as the Count when
that's
he
it.
went to London.
That's it. And everybody,
I think they thought that would be confusing for stupid movie viewers. You know?
and no spoilers. It's a Gothic story in the true sense. Nobody gets off the Demeter.
Yeah,
right.
That's it. It's just nobody does. And as soon as you do that, it's not Dracula anymore. And then it's not.
And they add a new vampire hunter. It's like we already have a group of vampire hunters.
Yeah, we do.
Another one,
Yeah, and so
there's some really great stuff in it, though. There's really
great stuff. Really great stuff. And I love the practical effects. So I applaud them for that they did practical stuff.
One of the things I was talking to Kelley about is, in the novel, he brings these 50 crates of his native earth with him to London. And in every other film version you ever see, they're coffins. They're coffin sized.
Yeah.
And in this, they're enormous crates. They're like the size of 6 coffins. And it's just like,
massive.
holy shit, he's packing for bear, man. He's bringing a lot of dirt with him.
Well, I love that. Yes, the huge boxes was fabulous. But no, it ultimately it caved to modernity rather than to acknowledging Stoker.
Yeah. The one thing I did like about it is like, oh, we got the fucking monster. You know what I mean? We got a fucking monster.
Yeah.
So I did like that. And
then again, you need to see him as not the monster too, And
and at the end it was confusing.
Really show his hand, show something,
Just one great shot of him on all those boxes or something in his full regalia.
Yeah.
That's all you need with the moonlight coming down from the opening in the hold. That's all I wanted.
Yeah,
and he didn't even have to say anything, but that's how he's going to appear in England.
Oh yeah, and I
in the full thing. Then he can go monster on him.
There was stuff I loved about the BBC version as well. You see, the cool thing is, and the tragedy is, what led to our version is that Kelley and I both agree on this. We love so many aspects of so many different film versions of Dracula.
Me too.
And yet none of them truly suits us.
No.
Which led us to go, all right, we need to do our version.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And you just acknowledge Stoker. I mean, 100%. Stoker, it's all there.
Yeah, it is all there.
Yeah, and Stoker, he traveled over there too, right? He did research on Vlad, and
he never left. He never left England. He just studied. He studied every single book, pamphlet.
There was one specific book by a woman about Transylvanian supernatural stories that was his main source.
And there was a great somebody had found, and they took it out of the London Library, the big gigantic one. You see it in Curse of the Demon, actually, at the beginning. It's a huge library. And someone had found it hadn't been checked out since this travel book on with his notes in it. They also found he had checked out a book on Romanian and Transylvanian cuisine. And that's where he got the chicken
paprika. Paprika chicken, right? With John Marker.
And he checked that out and found that was a traditional dish going way back. So he threw that in there. Give it to whoever thought, let's go look and see where his reference came from.
Right. Because I always assumed he had traveled over there, And
no, it's that good. He was so good.
His other big inspiration for the character was not just Vlad. That was the source material, the background, the visualization. to some degree. But of course, his main gig, he was a writer on the side. His main gig was he was a theater manager at the Lyceum Theater in London. And the Lyceum Theater had one major star, a fellow named Sir Henry Irving. And he was a tall, aquiline, aristocratic douchebag. And Stoker's description of Dracula matches Henry Irving to a T. That was who he was describing.
And if anything,
also, Irving had this, kind of mesmeric power on stage, and that translated into the character of Dracula.
And I think that when you read how their relationship was, he was his Renfield. He was his familiar.
Absolutely so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We have somebody with us new.
That's Doc Salem. That's my buddy Preston Azevedo. How's it going, brother?
I'm a huge fan of Matt's. I was pushing for that Grendel series big time.
Yes.
I contacted you I think it was a year ago or something like that.
Well, you talking about the Netflix series?
Yeah. I contacted you. I was like, "Hey, Matt, are you open for commissions?" And he was like, "No, I'm working on the Netflix series for Grendel." I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "This is the greatest thing that could possibly happen." But
could have been.
I don't know why. That's crazy. I think what's going on is there's everybody's suffering from superhero fatigue,
Grendel didn't fit that mold.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think they understand. Grendel isn't.
The adaptation didn't fit it either. Okay, so here I can explain to you what happened. So, the true tragedy is they filmed the whole thing. I have all the DVD. Yeah. In fact, I just sent it to Kelley to watch.
Matt, can I get a copy or?
Can't be handing it around, unfortunately. But the sad thing is, a couple of years ago, Netflix was just a fucking dumpster fire. Their stock crashed about 70% in 1 year. They went through a huge managerial purge. We lost the executive that was in charge of our show.
Yeah.
Inherited by somebody else. And it's just like the old thing about, when a new alpha lion comes into the pack, he kills all the cubs from the previous lion. That's what happened. He just always from the beginning said, "I don't get this show. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it."
Jesus Christ.
And finally they just killed it.
You're going to make me go burn down Netflix. Anyway, so
that's the sad history of Hollywood, though, right there in a nutshell.
Yeah.
That's been every time a new studio head comes in. No, the age of a Robert Evans we need again, an eccentric nut job, but who supports artists.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Tubi.
No,
something like that.
Robert Evans, all I ever heard was he was some oddball, but after reading about him and seeing him, I wish he'd run comics. I wish he'd run movies, television. I want a clone Robert Evans.
I don't want to divert this conversation too much to Grendel. And Matt, if you ever want to come on a show and talk about Grendel, we can do that because the last Grendel series was insane. Because I'm a huge Grendel Prime fan too. Whatever. But when I heard you guys working on Dracula, I couldn't be happier. You know what I'm saying? Matt, I'm a huge fan of Matt's work, his art and his writing, because of Grendel series and a bunch of other things like The Shadow and all that kind of stuff. But Kelley killed it on his Batman series, and also Red Brain, Red Mist, Bloodstorm, all of that stuff is crazy. Yeah.
No, that's why we got together. Is we both were fellow travelers in that same kind of a thing, and independent within this industry, and
which is not an easy position to maintain after so many
years. It isn't.
No,
it isn't. And over 5 years, it's tough. Much less 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys survived because y'all don't fit the mold of a standard comic book artist.
I would say one thing that's true about Matt and myself in doing that is our stuff doesn't look dated.
No, it looks like metal. It's very heavy metal oriented.
Whenever you're independent, and that seems to hold. We're not. I don't look at Matt's work, for example, and think of a period. It's just Matt's work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, same is true for Kel. Yeah.
Just I just see it as that's his work. If it came out now, something from 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever. If it came out now, it'd be fine.
Well,
but Doc, you're such a Grendel fan there. I don't know if you know, at the end of this month, I have a huge Grendel book coming out, which is my my complete redoing of Devil by the Deed, the very first the Hunter Rose storyline. It was originally 37 pages. I've completely redrawn it.
Oh, sweet. Oh no. All right.
121 pages of all new art. Just
I got the first appearance of Grendel, one that you signed and you put a little doodle in the inside of it. And also, look, I'm a huge fan. Look, I'm an artist too, and I trade out art sometimes to comic book shops, and they're like, "Hey, here's," and I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing with that Grendel Prime? I mean, that Comico primer over there." And so I got a copy of that, and then some whack job was selling a Grendel #1, signed by you with a certificate of authenticity, and I was for like $35. I was like, I'll take that one too. But one thing I like about Kelley's work too is that, I mean, both of you guys are like legends in my eyes anyway, because Matt's an insane painter besides being an illustrator. And Kelley, like, I notice whenever you do books, like it almost like your style doesn't change from panel to panel, but you're not really an illustrator. You're an artist. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, I don't want to work in a situation where I have a standard head shape, a standard look, a standard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what attracts me to your work. And you use a lot of heavy shadows.
He makes every panel a moment.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I just hijacked the show, didn't I?
No, 100%, man. It was hard for me. Like,
no, you know what?
Anyone
who has a lot of love or emotion for it, I'm down with it.
Yeah. I backed this book as soon as I seen it was available on Kickstarter. I was like, #1, here we go.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And Matt's and Kelley's work, man. I remember as a kid, just the Nightfall books, like and Graham Nolan, like that's my favorite Batman story, and my son's name is fucking Bane, so I mean that's
there
his
you
name.
go.
So his name is Bane Wolf. So it was a big book for me. Let's just say that. But
and nobody did Dead Man better than Kelley Jones too. Like, that was an insane series.
Well, Neil Adams.
No. I mean, I have to disagree.
I love me some Neil.
Besides, your style is a night and day too. Like, I mean,
he always appreciated. He said it was really hard. I love Neil because he would just say things in a way. He says, "Well, it's hard to follow me, but you found a way to follow me because you did the big ears."
That's Neil. That is Neil.
I love Neil because he never held back. Like I had guys coming to me and they're like, "Hey, you want to?" He quit comics, go talk to Neil. And I'm Neil's just being honest. Like, if your anatomy sucks.
His wife, and he explained it to his wife, who didn't understand a word he was saying, but it was cool. He was a trip.
I liked him. And even towards the end, his Dead Man, like all the different cool cover things he was doing, was so inspirational.
No.
Neil did a book called Monsters too, where he did an individual story on Frankenstein, the werewolf.
Yep. Yeah, I remember. I remember as a kid, and I still own it. As a kid, I bought the werewolf and Frankenstein and Dracula album.
Yeah,
and I just bought it. As a kid, you buy those kind of things, and it was Neil Adams. They had had when you open it was a double album set. You open it up, and it had a several-page story by him.
Oh,
and it was fabulous. And I didn't, at that point, I didn't buy it for that. I didn't know that was in there. But goddamn, he was good at it. It was just where does he find time to do all this?
He was quick. He was like Kirby. Like Kirby could knock stuff out. I mean, yeah. I mean, you got to respect those guys.
Swinging this, talking about the history of stuff here and swinging it back to our Dracula book, the thing we were really searching to do is to recreate the vibe of those horror comics and those first adult comics to reach American bookshelves back in the early 70s and mid 70s. So stuff like eerie and creepy and heavy metal.
Oh,
and in fact, in keeping with that, we did it 8.5 by 11 instead of American comic book format.
Oh,
so it's magazine sized, A
big boy, huh?
And I like that. It gives me more room to do stuff. I do like that.
The other approach we did to kind of try and capture that is, so our colorist is Jose Villarrubia. And we first thought of Jose to bring him on board because of the restoration work he'd recently done for DC's kind of archive editions of Wrightson's Swamp Thing, and then also the Richard Corbin library that Dark Horse was getting ready to publish. And I've always had this thing about Kelley's art in that I always find people color it too dark. They think, oh, his art's dark and moody. I'm going to color it dark and moody. And he's already done that work for you. You don't have to do it again. It
tends to make it a lot muddy.
Muddy, yes. And I was just like, Kelley, we need vibrant colors on you. So I said to Jose, look, Jose, we're looking for something like in the spirit of Italian giallo films,
Suspiria, and
something like Suspiria by Dario Argento, and more specifically, Black Sabbath by Mario Bava. Both of those films are they're lit up like neon Christmas trees, and they're cool and spooky as can be.
Yeah.
And he got that and he ran with it, and so it really evokes the feel of those comics that, again, Kelley and I so loved when we were first growing up.
Well, it was the books you weren't supposed to have, the books you weren't supposed to look at. I remember friends of mine were buying the Avengers and Batman and Superman, all that stuff, and I was buying, that wonderful second tier of Marvel, like Werewolf by Night or the creepier eerie, and certainly the forbidden heavy metal. And that was the big influence for me. Was I wanted. I thought Matt wrote that kind of a story that would be the forbidden thing that you weren't supposed to see. Yeah. And
in those days they had the spinner rack, for regular comics, which of course on the top said, "Hey kids, comics." But then, right next to it on the second or third shelf up on the magazine rack, here was creepy, here was eerie, here was heavy metal. There was also, I don't know if you guys ever remember, there was a newspaper style bi-weekly magazine that came out called the Monster Times.
That was so good.
No. Yeah. That was so it was like a newspaper. It was styled exactly like a newspaper.
Awesome.
Folded, and it was all about monster movies.
It was just monster movies.
Right up there with creepy and eerie. And believe me, when you're like 12 and you're reaching up to that shelf, you're kind of like looking over your shoulder, like, is anybody seeing me grab these?
It was better. It's like I always tell Matt, it was better than Playboy.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It had monsters too. It had plenty of tits. Yeah. It had monsters
too. Totally worth getting your tail busted over.
Your mom might not like Playboy, but she'd understand it. But when you got heavy metal, she might take you to a psychiatrist. So,
right.
That was during the Satanic Panic too.
Right.
So it
was before that.
We were well before that.
Okay.
We're older than you think, Doc.
But I always wanted, but when he called something, hey, the book will be called The Impaler, you have to go that extra mile.
Oh, absolutely.
It has to be that thing that is forbidden. And that I wanted a taboo book, and I got one.
And speaking of Dracula, man, we got the campaign pulled up right here. Let me share it. Everyone's got to take a look at this. It's a visual feast.
Matt, is it possible to, once you get that up there at the very top, there's a graphic that has a play button on it. You could play our trailer, which is really terrific.
Oh, yeah. We're going to play the trailer right now.
If you can make it full screen.
It is said that history is memory enshrined. Some might claim entomb, for history belongs to the bold, the victorious, those who are ravenous for power, no matter the cost. A craving I have manifested for centuries. I am such hunger, incarnate. And this, the history that I have won, against countless enemies, and across 1,000 blood-drenched battlefields. For I am the son of the dragon, Dracula.
Bram Stoker's classic novel created arguably the most famous character in all of literature. Yet it leaves many aspects of Dracula's history and persona only hinted at, and thus incredibly intriguing and mysterious. This series of books will fill in these tantalizing gaps and provide a more complete and terrifying portrait of one of the most popular literary characters of all time.
He had come to me with this great horror idea, stuff I had never thought of, never seen, and I love Dracula. I love vampire lore.
Our collaboration here is the culmination of our longtime friendship and an incredible synthesis of our two lengthy and accomplished careers in comics.
the joy of working on it is absolutely on every page, every panel.
This isn't yet another retelling of the novel in comics form. We're bringing you the never-before-told stories behind the story, the sinister tales hidden in the shadows of the original legend.
The heart of Dracula, blood that flows in his veins. It's as much in telling a story as the blood he spills. And in this, he spills a lot.
I'm not exaggerating when I say that this project is the magnum opus, everything we might have hoped it could be.
This is the journey of my brutal life and bloody undeath down through the centuries. The stories never cease. To defeat the godless, one must become godless. Dracula, Book 1, The Impaler.
The way Kelley works, it's like there's no outline. It's just a collage of shadows. Like, it's nuts.
Yeah.
Love it, man. And you guys are only 71 hours left. You know, we gotta get this campaign to 250, guys. So
Yeah.
come in here and check it out. All right.
There you go.
Yeah, come and check it out. We got some original sketches up right here. There's only a couple left, I think. Awesome ones by Matt and Kelley.
Yeah, those come in a real cool little envelope that we're kind of hand decorating.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
That'll look really cool.
Yeah, it'll be special beyond just the drawing, just beyond the original drawing.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
You guys got to get in here.
Do you guys both still work traditionally?
Yeah, I do.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Sweet. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of traditional art.
Well, you'd
That's the standard cover. That's Kelley's cover.
I like that. You see the mustache, you know.
I think I got Matt's cover because Kelley was doing the rest of the book, and I was like, "No, I got to get Matt's cover."
You got to.
So the next cover down is my variant cover.
You got the full Vlad with the stash.
Yep.
Yeah, I got Matt's cover too. Just because no, but I just got to see the full face, you know, and I was like, oh,
yeah, and that one,
I love Kelley's cover too.
Yeah, but Kelley did the inside of the book, so you're gonna have more than enough Kelley's art. You know what I'm saying?
Kelley's cover is colored by the interior colorist Jose, but mine's colored by my son Brennan Wagner.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He did your Grendel series, right? The latest Grendel Prime.
He's done a ton of my shit. Yep.
That's awesome. And then quote right here.
Yeah, this was there's a fellow named Leslie Klinger who's considered one of the world's foremost Dracula scholars. And when we first announced on Twitter, he made a comment. He's like, "Oh, this sounds totally intriguing," you know. So I contacted him and said, "Oh, Leslie, I have your new annotated Dracula. I would love to be able to show you the book and maybe get a quote if you're down. You know, if you don't like it, fine. But you know." And he gave us just this glowing quote. So we really felt like we had passed the test, you know.
Yeah.
Got an A+ in Draculology.
Yeah, he's quite good. I have Klinger's books on Dracula as well as several other characters, and it is very impressive that he said that.
Yep.
That's awesome. You get that stamp of approval.
Yeah, it was.
And we're going through the campaign, but just real quick, who's your favorite Dracula on film? Matt and Kelley.
Well, again, I keep coming back to, I like bits of this one, bits of that one, Nosferatu. I love the ferocity, the feral quality of that one.
Yeah.
Christopher Lee's just absolutely magnetic.
Yeah, I tend to fall into, I just go, probably my favorite vampire film is Dracula, the Prince of Darkness by Hammer, and it was Lee.
Yeah.
Lee just
that's
in that.
That's a fantastic one. Yep.
Yeah, and I think probably because he didn't have any dialogue, and he was just then going to do a full interpretation through his body language, through
pantomime.
Yeah, everything. So and as a kid, when I saw that as a very young kid. I saw it in a theater on one of those Saturday matinee kiddie things. I don't know how they got to show that. But man, it blew me away. I remember just being freaked out by that. And when I got older, I realized just how good of a film that was, and everything in that film works. Everyone works, but Lee, to this day, when he's slicing his chest open for the girl, and it's without a word, and it was like perfect Dracula to me.
That also has that just incredibly gruesome resurrection scene.
Worst, it's still it's you know what,
which still is shocking and looks really great.
Yes, watching it is terrible, but if you close your eyes and just listen to it, it's worse.
Yep.
So you have to watch it because the sound is so awful in that. But it is a tremendous film, and that's probably why is it Stoker? Nah. It's it, but it's
it has aspects of Stoker. They all have aspects,
and but it has all of the feel of it. It has the Father Sandor, who is a great vampire hunter.
Yep.
In fact, you could have had Matt. I always felt they could have done 5 more films with Father Sandor as
that would have been great.
Yeah.
So and like I said, all of the aspects of Stoker, none of them are Stoker like that.
No, not
like
one.
This piece you're looking at right here in the center of the screen.
Yeah. That's that reminded me. And you, Preston, who's your favorite on-screen Dracula?
Oh, Lee, absolutely.
Okay, so mine's Lee. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I've heard your other. I've heard other. For me, the first was Bella. Was Abbott and Costello. Didn't count and whatnot. And unfortunately, I've seen Gary.
I did like that. Yeah, that was awesome.
Gary fan of Abbott and Costello. Yeah.
I love it, and I always thought that was that he's half vampire, half mad scientist. In that was a Matt Wagner idea.
Yeah. But I love Klaus Kinski in Herzog's version in Nosferatu.
That's my favorite.
Creepy and isolated. You can tell he hasn't spoken to anybody in probably 100 years. And
when he bites the guy at the table, for me that was like one of the main things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything in that and the fact they actually filmed where Stoker said it happened is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's just really hypnotic. I did like a little picture of that. I was gonna say too that like I had those, and then Gary Oldman was my favorite. He's my favorite actor. I've watched your other podcasts, and I know your opinion on it.
I'm not a fan of him in that. I am a big Gary Oldman fan. I think he's fantastic, but terribly miscast in that one. Yep.
But Lee, like as I aged and went on, and my father showed me Lee, Dracula's Risen from the Grave, Horror of Dracula, and then I was just like, okay. And then as I aged, I found out more about Lee and who he is. He's Ian Fleming's, I'm like, oh, he's James Bond. And then special features, Lord of the Rings. Oh, this is how you kill him. Or this. Like, oh my God, what he did. And then just, him running around and jumping over tables into the Hammer movies, the full physicality of the performance of him and Peter Cushing. But for me, he's my favorite now. Like,
the other thing is the Hammer films had such magnificent titles. I mean, the first one in England is called Dracula, not Horror of Dracula. But man, you have a movie title called Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. Like, get in line. That sounds awesome.
For the satanic rites of Dracula.
Blood of Dracula.
Taste the blood. And Taste the Blood's great because you have that decadent Victorian guys, right? They tell their daughters be good, and then they're going off to all the hookers and everything.
Strange.
Hookers and opium dens.
Yeah, and I always used to think that in itself was such a cool thing, and then you get Dracula.
Now the story behind that one is because there's that guy that's kind of the pseudo Dracula in the first half of it, young Lord, I forget his name,
Lord Courtly.
Lord Courtly, and Lee had said, "That's it. I'm not playing Dracula anymore," and he was not going to do it anymore. So they kept making the Dracula movies with the name, and they were going to introduce a new vampire. And the American distributors told them, "Oh no, if you don't have Christopher Lee, we're not handling the movie.
Right.
We're not taking it." So they had to kill off Lord Courtly halfway through and bring Lee in under extreme duress. They were absolutely rotten in the way they got him back on screen by telling him basically, if you don't come back, we're going to have to close down Hammer Studios, and all these people you're friends with are going to lose all their jobs and probably lose their houses. And they were just fucking dicks.
But they made a great film. Taste the Blood is a terrific film.
Yeah, it is. It is. Against all odds, it really is.
Against all odds, it is a terrific film.
Oh, fuck. It's got Carolyn Monroe in it.
I got to ask you guys about Count Dracula, about Franco's Dracula. Count Dracula with Christopher Lee. What your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. It's got its ups and downs. It's a kind of a cheap production.
Right.
There's a great
when you say Count Dracula, the other one is the BBC version with Louis Jourdan, which is narratively kind of one of the closest to the Stoker novel. But Louis Jourdan's this short little guy, and he has this contemporary French haircut. It's just like, come on, man.
It's not a film, it's not a presentation, but there is a terrific documentary they made in the mid-'70s by a filmmaker named Calvin Floyd called In Search of Dracula, and they got Lee to narrate it. But Lee dresses in what you see Vlad wear.
Yeah,
those 100%. So he's walking around in that, and you go, he looks like
he looks like him. He looks enough like him.
Did you guys ever hear that story that Lee told when he was driving someplace and he broke down, right? And this is after Dracula came out, and he was known as Dracula and stuff like that. And he had a flat tire, and he went to a farmhouse to go ask for help, and he knocked on the door, and the husband answered the door and passed out immediately because it was Dracula at the door.
Yeah,
that's like
even if it's not true, that's a great apocryphal.
Yeah, it's like Boris Karloff, while making Frankenstein, went home for lunch because they didn't want to take off his makeup. Freaked out his neighbors. Here's Frankenstein coming home for lunch.
That's awesome.
I love this picture right here. Like, I haven't seen, there's like a multitude of things you've done with this vampire, let alone if it's Dracula or if it's not Dracula. I love the image of which I see right here. This is badass, Kel.
That's what I'm talking about. Like,
I don't know who it is. I'm not going to even ask who it is or what it is. I'm just going to speculate.
So you guys, the entire time I'm writing this, I'm writing to what I think are Kelly's strengths, And there were so many instances where I'm writing a page, I'm just like, oh, Kelly's going to draw the fucking shit out of this,
Yeah, right.
and then it would come back and it would be like way better than I had even imagined, So this was definitely one of those moments, that piece right there.
Love it.
Yeah, that was a good one. Thank you. That was a good one.
Look at that. Look at the way his wing curls in. He's got that hand curling in right there.
And not to talk about Coppola too much, but that was one of the things as a kid that I liked about it was all the monsters that he turns into, the bat, the wolf. Yep. That's what I liked about it.
Well, it's what I loved about stuff like, though it's not strictly Dracula, but Fright Night. I liked.
That. Yeah.
Oh, that was pretty good. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love me some Fright Night.
Actually, my son and I just rewatched that recently. It holds up really well.
It does hold up. And it's a nod to Tobe Hooper's Salem's Lot, but it's great. One
of my favorites too. Yeah. That Salem's Lot. You guys, I was just talking to somebody earlier about. At Kelley and I's age, the video entertainment you had, this is before VCRs, so you had no access to that stuff. You had to like religiously pore over the TV guide every Sunday when it came in, and you had to mark off all the shit. Like I'm gonna watch this and this and this and this and this. And my God, man, when that version of Salem's Lot was on, there was nothing anybody at my school could talk about other than that.
No. I have to say it's still as watching something on television, and there's a lot of great 70s horror.
Yeah,
that 100%. The Kolchak, the Night Stalker stuff, and all that
was great. Yeah.
But when Salem's Lot was the high watermark for what you got to see on TV as sheer horror.
My top three TV horror films from that time are Salem's Lot, The Night Stalker. Again, nobody could talk about anything else the next day.
Nope.
But then, oh my God, that Richard Matheson trilogy of terror.
Yeah, trilogy of terror.
Little killer Zuni doll.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, that was crazy.
Yeah.
She put it in the oven and it possessed her at the end. And then she smiles and her teeth are all jacked.
One of the great things about being a dad with sons is I showed them that. When they were kids, I showed them that because I knew it traumatized me. But what I didn't tell them was I had bought the Zuni fetish doll figure that
awesome.
Oh man.
And I stuck it in their room, man.
Oh man, that's like
that's amazing.
Do not take off its necklace.
Dude, that's great because that's part of what horror stories do for us psychologically.
Yeah.
Is they expose us to scares in a controlled manner. They enable us to control our fears and to conquer them in some fashion,
Yeah.
Like when I took my son out for the first time trick-or-treating when he was 3 years old, and he was dressed as a bunny and he had a real carrot, and I told him that it was just him and me, And I told him the way you got treats was you had to go up and knock on each door to make sure the house wasn't haunted. And if it wasn't haunted,
that's a good one. That's a good
you
one.
would get the treats. And Dad couldn't go up with you. You had to go up by yourself and do this, right?
Yep.
And he was like very trepidatious and everything. And years later, one of my wife's best friends started giving me grief about that. And I was like, yeah, you know what? None of them were fucking haunted. So
yeah. I'm down. It's all good.
Who can give you grief about that? That's
No, it's one of the things. The rituals of that are what you don't help your kid through it. You don't protect them from it. They later on, my kids loved all this clearly psychologically damaging things, as they would classify it today. They all brag about that. I used to do these things to them.
Yeah,
my kids love it, man. Like both my daughter and my son. One's 10, the other one's 4. They both dressed up as the rake, and then they come at me like and they scare me. They love Halloween, the spiders and whatnot. I love this piece right here, Kelley. When I see this, it just really, it really kind of throws you into like what we're going to be getting.
Well, Matt had said a forest, his special forest he had to go walk in, and you want it to be something memorable. And then reading what Matt was so good with his research, I had to go research real impaling.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Fortunate. You nailed it.
And then when you read it, it is horrific.
This is a scene where the Ottoman army is getting ready to attack, and they outnumber the Wallachian forces. And Vlad says, "But first, let me go walk through this forest I have planted to welcome them."
Yeah. And he did. It was one. I mean, when you read it, you just go, "What times these were?" That simply. And I mean, it sounds like a long time ago, but 500 years removed from that time, and that's what he was doing. I mean,
yeah. And it's weird too. Like if you do like a little dive on Vlad, you see what happened to him. You know what I mean? As a child, what happened to his dad and where he went. And you're like, oh well, he had to kind of fight fire with fire.
Some traumatizing stuff, and we reflect that in his character in the book. Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. But yeah, I love that piece. So many like just epic pieces in here, man. Like this right here.
This is page 1.
This one's got some history, from my understanding. This page right here.
This is page 1. Yeah, we did this page. Ended up doing this page 3 times because first one Kelley did based upon my script description, and I came back to him and was like, "Dude, it's a beautiful drawing, but I just don't think we're hitting it here. We need to try again." And so he tried another one. I was like, "Man, we're still just not quite there." And third time's a charm because it just needed to.
Well, I think
everything in that first
Matt said he didn't want to show him yet.
Right.
And the first page.
Okay.
And yet, it still needs to scream Dracula.
Yeah, and so Matt said he wanted something more symbolic rather than showing him. So, because if I were to show you the originals, you'd say, "Well, those are perfectly fine," but they weren't for the story. It didn't work.
They weren't the moment.
No, and it's too soon. You don't want to do it at the beginning. You want to do it. The
unveiling.
We're talking about Hammer Films. And the way they presented Dracula in the first one, Horror of Dracula, you wait, it's about 15 minutes. And then when he comes on, it's brilliant. Mm-hmm. And if you'd have started with him, it wouldn't have been the same.
I love that, how you guys have that fucking awesome working relationship, man. I've been listening to the streams you've been on and stuff. And like, Matt's been there kind of doing like the editorials and whatnot, to a certain degree. And the trust you guys have, man, fucking awesome.
Again, we've known each other for decades. And we respect each other's work previous to coming into this working arrangement, so.
And we've been doing this such a long time. I mean, Matt, like you said, he's been independent. I've been fairly independent, and we've worked with editors. We've worked with, we know how, at this point, we kind of know what we're doing in terms of doing it. But more so, I know how to trust someone who knows what the fuck they're talking about.
And you guys ever worked on anything before together?
No, this is our first. We did one Grendel short story.
One short story, but I mean, you know who knows what they're doing, and you know who doesn't, and it's a very short list of people who know what they're doing.
And you just have to, at the beginning of a process like this, say, look, the egos have to go out the window.
They have to.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're just got to be honest, and that's the way it is. So.
I've always said, if Roger Waters and David Gilmour got along, it's him and me. That's how it was.
Fuck yeah, man! I love that. Like me and Preston, we're working together on stuff, and if he tells me something, I'm gonna do it.
You listen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I always thought, and I carry this from whenever I work with writers, is that the writer can't see things that the artist can whenever they're writing a story. So it has to be a 2-part piece. You can't.
Well, it's a little different in my case because I draw too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, you're an artist.
What you
Speaking
want
of that, did you do any thumbnails for this? Like, did you give Kelley any guidance, or would you just like, Kelley, do your thing?
Scribble a little something and go here like this, but then what he did, made my scribble look like a scribble.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely.
Well, no, I think
So awesome.
I think what it is Matt writes with a lot of power, a lot of emotion.
Well, visually too. I'm describing what I know needs to be that visual moment.
Yeah, it has to get on paper.
And then you always took it and embellished it so wonderfully. You always made it more than the moment I was describing.
Awesome.
You had the beats, you had the rhythm there, and I didn't want to get in the way of that. You have this really nice way where you lead to something and it paid off. So I didn't want to step on that. But when I got there, I wanted it to be what the intention was. There's nothing wasted in a Matt Wagner script. There's not one panel that is not there for a reason and is integral to that page or to that sequence. So I don't mean it to sound hard. It's all there. When you read it, it's fabulous. So you don't want to screw it up. And
yeah, but Kelley, like, was there ever a time when you was mad at Matt and you hid phallic symbols all over inside of the artwork just to irritate him?
I think
I wrote those fuckers in there, man.
I think what happened was the opposite. I was so relieved to have a script that was this good that you just go enjoy every moment of it.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
There's our main cover, like we said, and again, we saw my cover and Kelley's cover. If you keep scanning down there, we'll take a look at the limited edition. So those are the two standard covers. There, you can buy them both together if you can't decide on which one you like better. And then that's the limited hardcover, the limited signed hardcover. The logo there has red stamped foil, and then inside there's
awesome.
Inside there's a mounted tip-in sheet with a piece of Kelley's art that is signed and numbered by both of us. Limited to, as you can see, 666 copies. We are repping the number of the beast from top to bottom.
Yes, we are.
And then this is another callback to our younger days. These art portfolios that would come in a decorative sleeve were so ubiquitous when Kelley and I were younger. The guys like Wrightson and Barry Windsor Smith and Mike Kaluta and Jeff Jones, the guys from the studio, Richard Corbin, Neil Adams, So these are 11 by 17 offset prints. So they're very, very lovely. They are Kelley's black and white art, so you can see it without the color. They are without lettering, although at the bottom of each print, you can see a little strip of copy there. At the bottom of each print is a caption taken directly from my script for that page. But again, that is just kind of evocative of the image. But again, the artwork does not have the lettering laid over top. It's just bare. Yeah. So that is seven prints at 11 by 17, and they come in a decorative portfolio with a spot gloss finish on the folio sleeve. You can only buy it in conjunction with one of the printed books. So that's with the standard book. The next tier down there is the folio with the limited edition book. Yeah.
That's awesome. Are you guys ever going to put out a black and white?
Boy, you are not the only one to ask, my friend. Yeah. We have got so many requests for that. So we're definitely making plans. Yeah.
I got today alone. I get about 7 or 8 requests a day.
Yeah.
I'm just fucking with you. I know.
In other words, that's going to happen.
Everybody wants
it. Will. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And that too would be almost certainly presented at full art size, so you can see.
Oh, dude, that's going to be sick. So many things, man. And then they got
and then, like we said, the real high end tier of the original art, which
well, that's what you were saying. It's the pleasure and the joy of having our own Orlock press. We can make those decisions and do that.
Yeah, that was the other thing. To do this, we had to come up with a business entity, and we called it Orlock Press after Count Orlock, who's the vampire in Nosferatu. They couldn't call it Dracula because they were ripping off the story. So our imprint is called Orlock Press.
Orlok.
Who would you guys cast in a Dracula movie? Like if they were going to make a new one, who would your
if they were going to base it on our book, Matt, who would you cast?
Me? I know who I would pick, but
go ahead. Go ahead. He meant me, but you go first, other Matt.
Okay, this guy's perfect for Lamont Cranston. He's the only actor that could play him. He is a ex-military gentleman. His name is and I don't, I've seen him in one movie I kind of like, but he's fucking perfect. It's Adam Driver.
Oh yeah, Driver would be good. You're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's that big fucking mustache on him, and that big voice.
Yeah, Driver would be good, and he would have the intensity. So Matt, you were talking about Gary Oldman there, and I was talking about how I don't like Gary Oldman in that role. I don't know if you know, but the final casting came down to it was between him and Gabriel Byrne.
Oh, okay.
Gabriel Byrne was going through a shitty divorce and couldn't leave LA at the time, and that's why he couldn't take the role.
While always be angry with Ellen Barkin.
Right. That fucking bitch.
Yeah. She ruined it.
Fucking bitch. Oh man, that's so funny.
You're right. Adam Driver would be a really fine choice.
I'm always like, I come out of left field with that.
Yep. And he's big. He's a big guy.
A big dude. He's big, and I'm like, dude, he could be Reeves.
Big dude, and he has
be like Reeve in it. You know what I mean?
He has those not too pretty contemporary features. You know what I mean? This is a problem with casting today. Everybody's too pretty.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Yeah. No. Yeah. Same thing with Wolverine, but I don't even get into that. But like Driver, dude, he's perfect for that.
He would never ever do it. I had always thought Daniel Day-Lewis would be good.
Oh yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's good.
He'd be a better Lamont Cranston, truthfully.
Yeah, dude. No, he's oh man, no, you nailed it.
And I know he's retired now, and he's done doing it. But I see him from There Will Be Blood, and
or Bill, Bill the Butcher. That's my favorite role. I mean, that one and Last Mohicans, but yeah. No, I would go find him. Like, hey, stop making those shoes. You're playing Dracula. Get over here.
The last film he did, The Phantom Thread, I really dug him in that. I thought he was absolutely.
We were talking about cinematic versions earlier, although it is imperfect in its whole. I really like the BBC 3-parter that was later shown on Netflix with Class Bang.
Yeah,
and
Preston loves that movie.
He really brings.
Except for the last episode. The last episode fucked it all up.
Although there's stuff in that I like. It's like I said, it's imperfect.
Just the way it ended was just bad.
He brings an ancientness to the role.
Plus, he had a sense of menace.
Hundreds of years. I would agree with that. He did seem really old.
Yeah.
Ancient. What did you guys think of Dracula Untold? Did you guys watch Dracula Untold?
Yeah,
I loved it.
Just heroic stuff. Didn't turn me on at all.
What about you, Kelly?
I like the way he changed. I like the bats when he changed. He never changed into one bat. He was like a horde of bats.
I actually liked what's the one? I forget the name of it. Dracula. The one with Roger Daltrey as the
what is that
cardinal or the bishop or the religious whatever. But I like that guy, and it's just basically it's Vlad, but and he doesn't really look like Vlad, but I thought that one I gave it points just because they were trying to do Vlad,
That's the one with Peter Weller, I think, right?
Might have been. It's been a long time.
Yeah, here's the thing about Dracula movies. You're talking about there's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of really shitty ones too.
What do you guys think of Renfield with
we were just saying I haven't seen that one yet. I'm not.
It's good.
I'm not a big fan of comedic Dracula stuff. So
it's good. It's like if you've seen the movie Cranks, the Crank movies with Jason Statham, so it's kind of like that. But he's super. They react some of the Bela Lugosi scenes, and we love the Bela Lugosi castle. We love that. I mean, Lugosi's got that hypnotic stare where he could stare at you nonstop. He played Dracula like on stage for however many years before going on screen. But Cage does it, man. He does. There's a certain couple of scenes where he sells it, and they do get that Evil Deadian, splat stick, Three Stooges type action going in certain spots. But it's definitely worth the watch. And sometimes it's a common topic that me and Preston do throughout different streams is, what are they going to do with Dracula? You know what I mean? What are they going to do with this dark universe? You know what I mean? Like, I think they got really close to it in Voyage of the Demeter.
I don't think they can do Dracula nowadays. I don't think they can do any real horror movies nowadays.
Where you have to do it is with sincerity, and I think Monster Squad with Duncan Rieger got Dracula.
Yeah. It feels like nowadays they're making movies by committee. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like it used to be where it was like.
Unless they're indie films, I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you have to be now. You have to be Christopher Nolan or Denis Villeneuve to just have, or Ridley Scott. You have to be that level to have these guys just shut up and sit down.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys are dying out there. There's not.
All three of them are fanatical Stanley Kubrick fans, so they write their contracts the way Kubrick had it, where there's no producers, there's no studio guys come on their sets.
Yeah.
Right. So, but you have to bring home the bacon like those guys do.
I mean, my favorite vampire movie of the last 15 years is Let the Right One In.
Yeah.
That was
I love that one.
It's magnificent, because all the best horror needs to be about something else.
Yeah.
It's not really about the scares. It's about all the other stuff, Now, okay, I will add to that. One of my favorite vampire things is Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass on Netflix. I don't know if any of you have seen that.
That was fantastic.
It is fantastic, but that's not really about the scares. It's about addiction and faith and loss of faith. Let the Right One In. It's about loneliness. It's about the loneliness of being a bullied 12-year-old boy or a 200-year-old lonely vampire. All the best. I always point out it amazes me that Ira Levin, this middle-class Jewish guy in the 70s in New York, was able to write some of the best feminist horror novels of the last 50 years. He wrote Rosemary's Baby, which is about the fear of pregnancy, and he wrote Stepford Wives, which is about the fear of marriage and conformity. How did this guy come up with that stuff?
Yeah, really.
Yep.
Hey guys, we got 70 hours to go. We need to get this campaign to 250. All right, so get in here and back this book.
Now our PI guys say there's always just a surprising amount of activity in the last 48 hours.
100%.
Absolutely.
So hopefully,
they're 100% correct.
Yep.
Like this book's a massive hit, right? And
this book's massive hit. They told me there's still 1,900 followers to the campaign that have not yet pledged.
And they're gonna I mean, I'm not gonna say nothing, but like okay, so for me, Bernie Wrightson was the pinnacle of comic book horror. Okay.
Yep.
And he put out Alive. I fucking got every book, and then he passed. Kelley jumped in and fucking finished it. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh man, it's a fucking solid. And this book's badass. You know what I mean? And I made a statement to a DM and to Kelley, like, hey man, Bernie had fucking Frankenstein. You got Dracula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was my approach going in. I was like,
it is what it is. And
I got the guy to do Dracula.
He knew he wasn't going to make it, and he got a hold of me and said, would you finish this for me? Because it was his life's work, and he was really upset that it would not. He knew he couldn't finish it, and so when he asked me to do it, he passed away about 4 months later.
Was that? Did you end up penciling and inking, or did you finish the layouts?
All he had were thumbnails, like about this big. They were very small. A couple he had drawn. They're beautiful.
They produced those in the hardcover. I got the hardcover, and it's got that in the back.
But essentially, I had to light box a lot of it or blow up a lot of it, and then follow as much as I can. I wanted to look at his and they sent them to me, some of his finished stuff, so I could see how he pushed or pulled a line. Because you can look at a finished thing, but you got to see how did he do certain things, so I could replicate. Because I couldn't think in my style, so I had to think how he did it.
There's a car alarm just going on.
Yeah,
I met Bernie. I met Bernie twice. Once was in the '90s, and he was very negative. He was teaching a class on comics, and I was like, all right, I'm in. I'm going to do that. And then the second time I met him was it was a few weeks before he died. Him and his wife were selling a screen printed Swamp Thing poster over at the Houston Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And I got a copy. As soon as I seen Bernie was there, I was like, I got to go get a copy.
He had once told me, and I always feel good about this.
But he was lobotomized at that point.
Well, they'd taken the cancer.
Yeah.
But he had told me, I don't know, about 10, 12 years ago, that the one thing he regretted was movies don't scare him anymore. There's nothing he sees that really scares him. And I said, well, that may be true, but how about if I guarantee you, I'll send you something that will scare the hell out of you, and there's not a drop of blood. There's nothing, you know, it was made for British television, and it was made for Christmas time. Wow. And I said, so I'll send this to you, and I'm not going to tell you anything. The only thing I'm going to tell you is you watch it at night, and you make no phones, no nothing. You just shut off everything and just watch this. And he said, well, okay, but nothing's going to scare me because I've seen everything it was. He sent me a great package of thank you stuff because it scared the fuck out of him.
What was it?
It was a 1989. You can get it now. You have to order a British version, but it'll play here. And in 1989, they Nigel Neal, you know, the great Nigel Neal. He did Quatermass. He did.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. He adapted The Woman in Black for television.
Oh,
okay. And it's not the one that they did
with Daniel Radcliffe.
No, it is on a quantum level more frightening. It is absolutely terrifying, and it's not that at all. That's got the name, nothing else. This is totally different, and the novel is chilling. Okay, the woman who wrote it, it is one of the handful of times you read a novel and you go, Jesus Christ, you know, it is that good. But this was unbelievable, beautifully acted, incredibly directed, unbelievably frightening. The tension is unbelievable, and it pays off. And so he got a hold of me and just said that did it. I can't believe it. And it's not like traditional or whatever. It is really a gripping story. I highly recommend it.
Oh, I have to look that up now. Yeah.
One of the things I loved about Bernie's work is that there was just the sense of evil.
Well, this is what it was. And that's exactly what this is the sense of evil.
Yeah.
And that once you realize what's going on, it takes over. It's my favorite, probably my favorite horror film, just simply because every time I see it, it works.
I gotta see this.
Yeah.
Check it out. I'm gonna have to look up as soon as the stream's over.
I've seen another.
There's some. I sent him some other stuff that worked on him too. There's a great series out of England, again from England in the 70s, Ghost Stories for Christmas.
Oh,
and there's one, The Warning for the Curious, which is unbelievably good. Lost Hearts, which deals with the murder of children. For Christmas Eve, they ran this.
Damn.
But a brilliant series. Whistle and I'll Come to You.
You gotta love the British.
Brilliant. All of these were brilliant. So Bernie saw these things and he flipped. He couldn't believe how good they were, and that he had never seen them. You know,
we got to get a list of movies from you, Kelley.
Yeah.
Has everybody seen it was an episode of Masters of Horror, the adaptation of Wrightson and Bruce Jones's famous story Jennifer?
Oh, no, I've never seen that.
No,
you know what I'm talking about? The story.
It's a live action version.
Jennifer,
yeah. And it's not perfect, and it's not a period piece like the original, but it's pretty darn close.
Good.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I used that story to. I had an art class, one of the few I ever took, where they were just saying how comics aren't art, and so I put that in and a few other things to show that it can be art. And the teacher never bought into it. The professor never bought into it. But when the students were reading it, the students were flipping out. And Jennifer was one where I remember this girl. It was the review I always want, where she got mad at me and says, this is awful, like that, because now I'll never forget it. And it's going to give me nightmares. And I'll never look at this, something like, and I said, but it's pretty good, huh? And she goes, well, yeah, but it's awful.
It's too good. Yeah, right.
That used to irritate me when I was coming up, is that it doesn't matter. It didn't really matter how good you were. Like if you did comic strips you were automatically out of the art field.
You're the
You
only,
know what I'm
Matt and I
saying?
make
Like,
a living being artists. The teachers never did. They had
well, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
Matt and I do it.
I'm a painter, I'm an illustrator, and I actually, for a while, I was wondering why. Why wasn't I considered an artist by people in the fine art field? So I hung around these guys,
They're
and
jealous.
I was like, it's not just that. Like, for me, anyway, the guys I was hanging around with, like, it was a bunch of yuppie, not really yuppies, like wannabe yuppies that were kind of blowing each other's egos up, but they never really had any talent, and they never really sold any work except to each other. You know, it was weird. It was the weirdest thing I've ever been a part of.
When I was in art school, my favorite teachers were the guys that were not full-time teachers. They were full-time artists that taught a class or two on the side.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they had real-world experience. They had real-world likes and dislikes. They weren't in competition with the students.
funny.
It was almost, it was almost like they were in love with the idea of being an artist. You know what I'm saying? But not really wanting to put the work in.
I think what it is David Lynch's art life. You drink coffee, you smoke cigarettes, and all you do is create art. And he said there were all these people who said that. Hardly any of them did it, and he was actually doing it. And that's the art life.
You are only an artist not by considering art, but by the act of creating art.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was just weird. You know what I'm saying? Like,
because you're talking about vampires. We were talking stuff with vampires for film. John Cassavetes' daughter Alexandra loved horror films, and they weren't considered true art. They aren't considered true film or whatever. So she got pissed off, and she went and made a fabulous vampire film called Kiss of the Vampire about 10, 12 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I think I've seen that.
It is a vampire film. It is not some art film. It's a truly good horror film, and one of my all-time favorite vampire films. But she did it to say, no, you can make a good movie, and it can be a great horror film, and it's still a film. It's still legit. It's very literary, but it's really delivers on the goods.
Kelley always says that he considers what I do literary pulp.
It is literary pulp.
And I'm just like, yeah, I'll take that. That's about the best stroke I could get.
Well, that's essentially it. It is, and when you read a Matt Wagner story, it's what made me a fan of his. Was I know I was getting a cut above, many cuts above, but it also delivered the way other books didn't. You know,
I was introduced to Matt's work by it was the Grendel Batman crossover, you know, the first one. And then like I fell in love with the Grendel character, you know, because I was never really a huge Batman character, but I liked the side stories that they had, right? Yeah. And I like Kelly's work on that, but that was it. Like I was not really a huge, because Kelley brought horror to Batman. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, everyone has to make it different. Matt made it different. You have to make it like what I liked about what
you
Matt
owned it.
Was it looked like Matt invented Batman when he did it.
Yeah.
It was like,
that's what I'm saying. Both of y'all did that. Like Matt actually brought Batman back to like the golden age.
What I did was I figured the only way to have any mastery of the characters, you have to pretend you invented it. And when I looked at Matt, I thought this guy's doing the same thing. He may not say that, but that's what he's doing. Here's this really great interpretation. That's what got me it pushed me to like, I got to meet this guy because I was loving what he was doing at Kamiko and doing his own thing. And then when he started doing Batman shit, I went, man, this is next level to me. And it's like he invented. It's like Batman didn't exist until Matt started doing it. And I went, that's how my approach was. You act like no one did it.
Exactly. And now what disappointed me though was that, but not really, because I kind of got on board with the volume 2 of Grendel, but the first, like, there's not a lot of Hunter Rose, like Grendel stuff out there, right? Am I right about that? Like,
no, you're wrong.
The first 4 issues, and then you reference him.
No,
like,
we did the Devil by the Deed, which was the original storyline, but then we did we did the Black, White, and Red series. We did the Red, White, and Black series.
I remember that.
Devil. So the first Grendel omnibus is all Hunter Rose. It's about 600 pages long. So that's quite a bit.
Yeah. It's going to be something else.
Because I remember you had a bunch of different Grendels, like, because Grendel it wasn't just one person. It was like,
it's not one person.
It became like a planet. You know what I'm saying? And one of my favorites was the crazy one, Epi Thatcher. Right? I was like, Epi Thatcher's nuts, dude. Like,
everybody's got their favorite Grendel. It's like it's kind of like it's a little telling.
And there was like drugs like involved in it.
It's Matt's psychological test on people. It's their Rorschach. Yeah. Which one will tell you what kind of person you're dealing with?
And that's why I see both of you guys working on Dracula. I was like, in. I didn't even have to read the campaign. I just backed it.
Doc, you said you liked Devil's Odyssey. I'm currently working on the sequel, Devil's Crucible, which will come
I can't wait. Like I'm totally.
That's 12 issues. I have 8 of them done. So
I want to like volunteer a piece of art for it, cover, whatever. I don't care. Like, I don't want to be paid. I'll just want to give it to you. How's that?
Just send it into the letters column. We run them in the back. Yep.
Done.
Yep.
I love that you still do a letters column. That's so great.
That's epic.
Yeah.
And Matt, you said like you're like one of your main influences, like from Dracula, like altogether was Nosferatu, right? That first movie you've seen as a kid, right? What do you think? Are you excited for the new Eggers film?
Oh, fuck am I? Yeah. Very much so.
Do you like Eggers?
I love The Witch. I was less so on
Northman?
The Lighthouse, but I love the Northman too, man.
I love the Northman.
Northman was good.
Everybody hates on the Northman. I fucking love me some Northman.
Oh no, it was badass.
I like
the fact you got these two like naked Vikings fighting to the death,
and the big Draugr in the ship of the.
Dude, it was amazing.
I was like with Nosferatu, beyond just its horror, the 1922 version is one of the greatest films ever made, silent or not.
It's scary as fuck.
What hubris it took for Werner Herzog to say, "I'm going to do my version," and then it's a great version.
It is.
So Robert Eggers now has to deal with 2 great versions, and now his.
The thing about Eggers is he does the fucking research. Like if you've ever watched on YouTube, there's plenty of things that dissect the witch.
Yeah,
and all the sources for it, like the scenes there at the beginning in the Puritan village. Those are all actual Puritan people that were, the family that gets exiled is based on a certain guy at the time.
Yeah.
That crazy when the son comes back after being attacked by the witch and is all fucked up and dying, and he starts spouting off this weird, crazy, erotic prayer. That's an actual pilgrim prayer. I mean, this guy does his research, so it is going to be a very accurate.
The witch does not leave you. That lets you know how good. Yeah.
And
it's more than just the archaeologist on set, but the lead up is really great too. Yeah. So. Hey guys, I gotta say I'm starting to fade here.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it, guys. Go back. Dracula Volume 1, The Impaler. You guys are, this is the big Dracula book that you guys are, I think probably in your lifetime, you're going to feel bad if you don't get it right now. You want to get it on the ground floor. You want to be part of history. It's going to be the one. So you guys, you definitely want to get it.
Leslie Klinger, worldwide Dracula scholar, called it canonical.
Yep.
Doesn't get any better than that. So you guys get in there, check it out. And
it's bloody. That's my favorite part.
Bloody awesome.
It's very dark.
Yeah.
And Sir Matt Wagner, where can we find you?
On both Facebook and Twitter. I don't do Instagram, but both of those I'm pretty active on. So you could message me on either of those very easily.
Hell yeah. Sir Kelley.
Okay, Same thing here. Yep.
Awesome. And Doc, where can we find you at?
Oh, you know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be on a metal shop in about 15 minutes.
Okay, if you guys want to check us out on the Metal Shop on Jock's Channel, we're going to be talking about Motorhead's album art. That's what we do. And as always, everyone, thanks for watching. And always remember to be bold, be brave, and roll the bones to know you roll. I'll see you guys later.
Thanks for having us on, man.
Hey, thank you very much.
Anytime.